What makes you afraid? Some of All Fear lives at the crossroads between our greatest phobias and the horror movies we love to experience. Part pop culture and part psychology. It's time to find out why we're all so scared of the dark. Wow, you got a lot of notes.
I got lots of notes on mysophobia. Mysophobia.
Oh man, is this the fear of
mysophobia.
Jar Jar Binks?
It's the fear of Jar Jar, I think.
Oh man, this is gonna be a great episode. Most hated episode ever.
Or the mildly racist mysophobia.
Oh man,
not
you
so
can't
good.
Say that.
Can't say that.
We can't say that. Our niece and nephew is like 1/8 Chinese. So there you go.
There we go. Done deal. Yeah, that's our phobia for today. Mysophobia.
And he is so excited about this. He has just wildly been anticipating
the fear of germs
or contamination
or viruses
or uncleanliness or defilement in
unclean
dirt. Forever unclean.
Yeah, so fear of germs today. We never announced the phobia this early in the episode, but we're so excited about mysophobia.
And every time you do that,
got
I can't help but giggle.
There's just a Jar Jar thing going on there. But it's mysophobia. Mysophobia is the actual name of it. But every time I look at it, I think of pronouncing it differently. Welcome back, Feardos. We're back. Episode 17.
Wow.
17 episodes. Yeah, we're moving towards 20 here pretty quick.
We're teenagers.
I know,
we should move out and get a house soon.
Right. Maybe when we're 29.
Right. No, we have at least 10 more years of living at home.
I got my Kinklin.
You do, and I have my tea.
You got your tea. You got like two teas?
Well, I have a cold brew coffee from the farmer's market this morning that came in a mason jar. Oh my
gosh. Came in a mason jar?
It came in a mason jar. I was supporting local businesses, Kay.
That is like the hipster of all hipster things.
I thought you would say that.
Jeez.
And then I have my herbal tea and then water.
Wow.
And then my doogie.
None of that stuff's going to get you drunk.
No.
I, on the other hand, have got tequila and squirt, which is very similar to your herbal tea, from what I hear.
Yeah.
It's the herbal tea of the
alcohol world,
of the Aztec shamans.
Oh, tell me more.
I don't know. That's really all I know. That's all I know.
Come on,
that's what they used to drink.
You got to be faster.
Tequila and squirt was what the shamans used to drink. That's what I hear. I've in my vast studies of Aztec culture, I have uncovered that.
Oh,
so I didn't. Most people don't know that's the truth.
Squirt's been around a long time.
So Feardos, we're back. I'm Drew, the husband and horror nerd, and this is Kris, the wife and professional mental health therapist.
Oh, hello.
And she loves to read about making herself and others better, while I like to read about the socio-cultural implications of Jason's mask choices.
Wow, that could not be true.
And I've also heard that we're now being called the Sherlock Holmes and Watson of podcasting.
Wait, which one is Watson?
You're Sherlock Holmes, of course.
Oh,
for
thank
sure.
You.
There's no doubt about it. He's the smart one. Watson is the lesser of the two. They're equals, but one is clearly smarter.
I feel like you just want to be put down.
Well, sometimes. Shame me. Shame me some more.
Yes, Watson.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Holmes. Elementary, my dear Watson.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
If you like the show, guys, please go to your podcast apps and give us a rating and a review, much like our amazing contrarian friend, Lacey. She gave us a wonderful review this week.
Because she is wonderful.
She is wonderful. And she also signed it off as... her moniker on the review was Lacey the Contrarian. So we love that. She wrote a wonderful review. I'll read it real quick on iTunes. The horror, the fear, the psychology behind it all. Kris and Drew are a dynamic duo, just trying to help us figure out why we're all so afraid of everything. With each phobia, they discuss the background, the psychology surrounding it, and highlight horror movies that play on those fears to give us the heebie-jeebies. Give it a listen if you're into cool movies, scary topics, and metaphorical brain dissection.
Metaphorical brain dissection.
So be like Lacey, guys. Thank you, Lacey. We really appreciate it. Lacey is amazing. Her and Wayne, her boyfriend, are the baddest of asses.
Yeah, they are true Feardos. They show up on Sunday nights for Sinister Sundays. They listen to the podcast. Like they're just really amazing friends
Good people.
and people.
Good friends, good people.
So thank you.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll be at Sinister. I think we're going to see them at Sinister Creature Con too, right? We were talking about.
Yeah.
So if you're in the Sacramento area, guys, we're going to go to Sinister Creature Con at least on Saturday. We have 2-day passes, but I think we're only going to make it Saturday. We'll probably be at the Joe Bob. Joe Bob's going to be there. Felissa Rose is going to be there. Who else?
Will our stickers be ready by then?
Linnea Quigley. I hope so. I'm going to check with our friend Nikki Knuckles,
who is also
who works at the Sticker
amazing.
Guy, to see if our stickers are going to be ready by then, which I hope they will.
Thanks, Sticker Guy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, be like Lacey, guys. Go give us a rating and review. We really appreciate it. It really is. It makes our day, makes our week, and it's really helpful to promote the podcast. So we appreciate that. And it really helps us spread that Feardo gospel out into the podcasting world.
The word of the Feardo.
The word of the Feardo. We have social media as well.
Tons of it.
Check out our social media, guys. It's our community. It's the way that we talk and interact with all of you wonderful people. And we try to post fun, cool stuff up on there. And we also post up a lot of stuff about the episodes and we post some stupid ass memes and it's fun.
And Drew reads all the statistics about where you folks are at and reading from. And it's really fascinating.
Yeah. So we're on Facebook at Some of All Fear Podcast. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Some of All Fear Pod. And we have a sad little Patreon page at patreon.com.
Our one Patreon is fantastic.
Patreon.com/ Some of All Fear Podcast. But we don't really have a lot to offer our Patreons right now, but that's going to change because we are going to get some merchandise. But once we get 5 Patreons, guys, that's our goal right now. It's just five people to support at $5 a month. Once we get to 5, then we will be sending out t-shirts and stickers, and I don't know what else, but we'll get a few other things, a little package built for those first 5 Patreons. So get in while it's hot, man. Get in on the ground floor. This is like IBM in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Get in early. Make your investments for the big time.
For the big time. Oh gosh. And just as always, thank you for supporting.
Yeah, absolutely. What else? We had, I was going around. Hold on. I got some kinkling here.
Wait, I have a kinkling too. My spoon and my honey chamomile tea.
So lame.
You're lame. Your
so
face
lame.
is lame. Your face is lame.
So we're on a bunch of different podcast apps. So we're on Apple, we're on Podbean, we're on Stitcher, we're on Bullhorn, which I'd never heard of, Spotify, Google, Podcast Addict. And so I was going around. I like to go around and check them every now and then because they have some of those have reviews and comment sections and things like that. And I went on Castbox and I noticed that we have a few Castbox Feardos. And one of them is named Kaylee Weissman. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Kaylee. Looks like Kaylee. And she posted a bunch of comments up on Castbox.
Oh, that's rad.
She talked about a phobic experience where she couldn't go into her classroom when she was in elementary school.
Oh.
And had to sat in the bathroom the whole day or had to go home or something like that, which I can relate to.
Poor thing. I know.
And apparently we made her Alexa talk once. Which
yes.
posted a while back, which we realized we couldn't talk to our Alexa because it might be super annoying.
Which we also made Alexa talk like 3 times just then and 4.
Yeah. Just by saying Alexa? Probably, yeah. No.
Hey, Alexa, play John Denver, Death Harbinger.
John Denver, Death Harbinger. Country roads. And then most recently, a few weeks ago, she said we had great hints for What the Fear. So thank you, Kaylee. We really appreciate you listening, and we thank you for commenting and for following along with the podcast.
Thanks, Kaylee. You're a great Feardo.
Yeah. So we just wanted to say hi to you, Kaylee, because you had commented a few times, and we wanted to let you know that we noticed and we found your comments, and we appreciate them. So write us back and let us know where you're from, and we'll give you some more shout outs. Also was dissecting our Anchor podcast base and looking where people were from. We've talked about our international listeners a couple times, which is kind of cool. We now have only 93% of our listeners are in the United States.
What?
So we have a whole 7% of international listeners.
That's great.
Which is kind of cool. England is leading the way.
Hey.
We have Feardos in Winsford, Bradford.
Have they not listened to that episode yet?
The Fear of England episode. Winsford,
We love
Bradford,
you guys.
Leeds, and London. And then in Scotland, someone has been listening from my new favorite town in the entire world, New Cumnock. Yes, you heard that right. New Cumnock. The 13-year-old in me
you're such a juvenile.
Loves the dirty name of your town. So if you're listening from New Cumnock, please, I'm sure it's like New Cumnock or something like that. But it's fantastic. It's spelled Cumnock, which is just a beautiful spelling for a dirty town.
Beautiful. Reach out. Say
dirty
hello.
Old town. Oh, that's Irish. That's not
Feardo
Spanish.
from Cumnocked.
Dirty old town.
Come knockting at our messenger.
Hopefully you're a Pokes fan. Canada, we have Feardos in Saint Therese in Quebec, and also in Quebec.
In Quebec. I heard the fishing's great in Quebec.
And in Montreal as well. Plus in St. John's and Newfoundland.
Newfoundland.
Yeah. That's fun. Also, we have listeners in Germany, Australia, Brazil, Sweden, Saudi Arabia, Belgium, Ireland, Mexico, Philippines, Albania, Kazakhstan, Ghana, Colombia, Turkey, Switzerland, and Thailand.
Dang, I love all of that.
That's pretty
Thank
fucking
you.
Sweet. Yeah, it's really cool.
Worldwide Feardo presence.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like if you're international, and please reach out to us on social media and just let us know where you're listening from, because that's super cool. And we would love to, I don't know, get to know you and find out what you think of the podcast. That'd be super fun. Getting
to know you.
Keep going.
No.
Come on.
Mm-mm.
Come on.
That's all you get.
And if you're listening from anywhere in the United States, we would love to hear from you as well. So we would love to build this little Feardo community. It's really cool. So thank you for listening, guys, and we appreciate it. Also, local Feardos, Reno friends, which we know there's a whole shit ton of you guys too. And we appreciate all of our friends that listen here in Reno. Come out to Sinister Sunday's horror movie night, guys. It's really fun. It's at 8 p.m. every Sunday at Taste of Chicago in downtown Reno. And we always have Chris behind the bar. Chris or I, one is behind the bar, bartending for the night, kind of guest bartending for the evening. And then we have food and drink specials, and it's a blast. Don't you have fun at horror movie nights?
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's cool. And it's been kind of going up and down. It's like 1 week we'll have like 15 people, and then 1 week we'll have like 5, and then 1 week we'll have 15, and then 1 week we have 5. So we would love to get a consistent group of like Reno horror fans out to watch fun horror movies. And this Sunday, I'm going to try to get this podcast out early this week, maybe tomorrow or even tonight. It's Saturday right now. So this Sunday, June 9th, we're going to watch the OG Friday the 13th.
OG.
The original gangsta. The first one. We're going to kick off.
It's going to be a bloody, bloody night.
We're going to kick off your summer at Camp Crystal Lake, man.
Yep.
I think that's a good way to do it. Why not?
High body count.
It is. It is. Is it Mahler?
Mahler.
That always says that Jason's the best because of his body count?
Yeah, Mary Mahler. Her favorite is Jason, but Gnarly Naylor's favorite, obviously, is Freddie. And so I actually have a necklace with both Jason and Freddie.
I just realized I was showing you my What the Fears.
Oh, I haven't been looking.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Whatever. My notes. I just printed out my notes for the first time because I always just do it off the computer.
Oh my gosh, you're such a butt.
Now I'm convinced that you're you just cheated your way through What the Fear.
Dude, I didn't have to cheat the last 2 times, and I did really.
That's right,
good.
because I have such excellent hints. Man, they're so good.
Why are you such a narcissist?
It's my thing, man. Everybody's got to have a thing. Mine is mild narcissism.
That's true.
It's a good thing. Are you ready for What the Fear?
I am so ready.
You wanna play?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. It's time for the world's greatest phobia-based trivia game.
What the fear? You say it now.
What the fear?
There you go. Okay, you have to say it like that.
All right, it's time for that phobia-based trivia game that makes Vanna White pee just a little.
Just a little. No,
just
I think that was, from her children. Yeah.
Probably because she's getting up there in age a little bit.
No, she's a vampire.
She's like 75, I think.
She's a vampire.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, her and Pat Sajak.
And our friend Robert.
Yeah. And along with her friend Robert. He's 50 and looks like he's like 30.
Yeah.
It's not fair. It's wrong. Although He is crotchety like a 50-year-old.
So are you.
That's, hey, you know, I like it that way. What the fear?
What the fear?
What the fear?
What the fear?
It's time to play.
Let's
are you
do
ready?
this.
Are you ready to learn about phobias?
this.
We're going to learn about phobias. We're going to give some hints, and then you got to guess.
I can't wait.
You got
for
to
your
guess what the
hints.
phobia is going to be,
I cannot wait for your
or what
hints.
the phobia is. So I'm going to give you a phobia. I'm going to give you some hints about that phobia, or a hint about that phobia, and then you got to guess what it is.
You got it. I'm on it.
Even though you already cheated,
I didn't cheat.
Just totally.
You
cheated.
know I can't see that far.
Totally cheated. Anyone you get right now, it's already been protested. I am protesting.
Whatever makes you happy, darling.
Oh, are you ready?
Yeah.
First one is xyrophobia. Xyrophobia. XYRO phobia. XYRO phobia.
Okay, what's my hint?
Xyrophobia. Are you ready for your hints?
Yeah.
All right. A male xyrophobic might be a prime candidate to win one of those sweet hipster beard competitions. And might need to find a partner. Well, I'm sorry, just a xyrophobic. No male. Forget the male part. A xyrophobic might be a prime candidate to win one of those sweet hipster beard competitions. And might need to find a partner who's into the hirsute fetish. A male xyrophobic might be a prime candidate to win one of those sweet hipster beard competitions and might need to find a partner who's into the hirsute fetish.
What's a hirsute?
Hirsute. Well, I'm not going to give you what it means because that's part of the hint.
Well, you have to.
No, I don't. You should know these things.
Let's go with the fear of beards.
Well, I said beard in the hint,
That's
so
true.
that can't be right.
That can't be right. Fear of barber shears, clippers.
Ooh, much closer. Much closer. I'll let you keep guessing because you're along the same lines.
Fear of cutting your hair.
Very close. The correct answer is the fear of razors.
Razors.
So it's probably a little closer to our ichnophobia, fear of sharp objects. Than
Right.
it necessarily is about the hair cutting. It's more about the razors itself.
Sure. Okay.
But I would say most of the time that's probably going to show itself with your shaving, right? I mean, that's when we're using our razors most of the time.
Okay? Can you please tell me about the
hirsute?
The hirsute
Hirsute
fetish?
means hairy fetish. Yeah. It's the ones with the, when they got the big bushes and don't shave their legs.
Does it also include armpits,
hair, yeah, everything.
arm hair, all that stuff?
It's just a hair fetish, man.
Huh.
People who are into the hairy chicks.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm sure it's the same way with women, I'm sure. I'm sure if the 1970s Playboy spread of Burt Reynolds makes you just a little tingly on your insides, you probably have a hirsute fetish.
Maybe.
Because that dude was one hairy motherfucker. He was pretty hairy.
No, I'm good.
You're not a fan. You're not a big fan of hair.
That's okay.
You don't like the chest hair or the back
I respect
hair?
people who like it.
You don't like a good good carpet of back hair to run your hands through?
No, I'm okay.
You don't want to fluff up the hair into a little pillow so you can lay your head on it?
Oh, no, thank you. I only want to do that with a dog's hair.
Ew. All right. Our second phobia, thalassophobia. Thalassophobia. Thalassophobia? THAASO phobia. Thalassophobia. Thalassophobia. Shut up. I'm having fun.
Thalassophobia.
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 Could be. Very possibly. All right, you ready?
It's like, you done messed up, AA Ron.
You done messed up, AA Ron.
You done messed up,
Thalassophobia.
Thalassophobia.
You done messed up, the Thalassophobia.
Okay.
All right. You won't need to pull up a chair for a thalassophobia. They'll just be hovering and making everyone uncomfortable.
Fear of sitting.
That is correct. Well done. Cheater.
Hey, we didn't practice that. That was fun.
Cheater.
You're a cheater.
You totally saw that one.
Yeah.
You're like,
I'll
just guess one of them, right? So he doesn't know that I'm cheating.
So like, unlike
Just
you,
to make it a little bit like
I don't use this to improve my own
your self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
I beg to differ. I bet you all week long you're like, man, I just wish I could kill it on What the Fear.
Yeah, that's totally what I spent my time on.
Well, we saw what I did with What the Fear in the first 15 episodes. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a Twitter notification. It made the speaker buzz. I should probably put my phone away. All right. Fear of sitting. Faceophobia. You ready for your last one?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Let's get it.
Cellophobia. Cellophobia. S-E-L-A. Phobia. Cellophobia.
It's my hint.
All right. Your hint is no raves or haunted houses for a cellophobic. In fact, probably won't be taking their picture at night either. No raves or haunted houses for a cellophobic. In fact, probably won't be taking their picture at night either.
Fear of flashing lights or strobe lights.
That is correct. Fear of light flashes.
I'm really good at connecting the dots that you make. So thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was
what
fun.
fun is a game show where you can't
I
get
know.
right answers,
High
right?
five.
Well
Good
done.
job.
Well done.
Feardos, let us know if you got any of those correct, or what some of your creative answers might have been.
Yeah, for like theasophobia, the aasophobia,
The
aasophobia.
The aasophobia.
All right. Are you ready to move into this wonderful phobia that we've been researching all week long?
Let's do it.
I'm pretty excited about this one. I think this one's going to be really interesting because I'm a big virus and germ movie guy. Like I love
love the contamination.
I love the
movies.
contamination, apocalyptic virus.
Why
movies.
do you think that is? Why do you like them so much?
Well, we'll get into that. I think because from a very early age, like I really those were books that like I don't know if I just stumbled on them or what happened, but the movie we're going to be talking about today really had an impact on me as a kid.
Huh.
For sure. So, but you know, and I'm not a germaphobe myself, and I know, but I've known some people over the years who are pretty gnarly germaphobes. But we're also going to find out about what the difference is between like OCD and this type of phobia. Mysophobia is also called germophobia is kind of a common vernacular for it, but there's also like verminophobia, bacilliophobia. There's a number of names for it, but mysophobia seems to be the overarching one.
It's the one that we're going to use for today. Yeah.
Well, it looks like that's the one that most of the time when you type in germaphobe, that's what pops up. When you type in like these other phobias, that's the one that pops up. So it must be the one that's clinically used the most to describe it. So let's dive right into our phobia for today. Mysophobia, the fear of germs or contamination. Mysophobia, the fear of germs, the fear of contamination. That's kind of the general idea, right?
The fear of uncleanliness, and it's that really intense fear of specifically just that and things related to that. So I want to point out that folks often kind of overgeneralize and they say if they clean their house, they're so OCD.
OCD, right? Yeah,
I think
OCD.
they're from LA, right?
LA.
But that's not OCD. OCD is a compulsion to act as a result of anxiety produced by intrusive, repetitive, obsessive thoughts about something.
So give me an example.
So for example,
you're Howie Mandel.
My mom's going to die if I don't check the locks 10 times exactly before I leave. There's this intense, obsessive, intrusive, which means it's really difficult to stop it from coming into your mind and to stop that loop from happening. It's almost like a fear response gone haywire a little bit. And so these different actions help to alleviate the anxiety associated with those intrusive thoughts. So they become kind of the output for those intrusive thoughts.
So step on a crack, break your mother's back may have originated with somebody who was legitimately OCD that literally thought if they stepped on a crack, they will break their mother's back.
Right, exactly. They know that it's irrational, too. Like, you know, folks who struggle with OCD really do understand that it's irrational, but they are so driven by the compulsion to act. They're driven to relieve that anxiety somehow, because we all know how uncomfortable anxiety is, right? So that's OCD.
So they do the things, they do those things. They check the doorknob 10 times.
Right.
To relieve that anxiety.
To relieve as a result of the obsessive compulsive, as a result of the obsessive thoughts, they do a compulsive act. Right. So that's why it's called obsessive compulsive disorder.
So I'm going to turn the lights off and on 5 times before I go to bed.
Because that means I'll be safe when I go to sleep. Because I've got this anxiety about going to sleep, maybe.
But they may still understand that's completely
it has nothing to do with it, but
they just have to do it.
It gives them an opportunity to put their anxiety somewhere and to relieve themselves of their anxiety. So it's truly a mechanism for coping with obsessive thoughts.
So explain the difference between so OCD, right? We often think people who wash their hands compulsively or whatever are OCD, but that's not necessarily the case.
Well, it could be a big proponent of their obsessive.
So it could be a combination of the two. So these two could work in
you know, we could see OCD in. We could see, mysophobia in OCD, you know, right? We could see that excuse me.
Not mysophobia.
It's not the fear of delicious soup.
Not mysophobia.
Not miso.
Mysophobia.
Mysophobia. So with mysophobia, it's a specific preoccupation with contamination that only includes things regarding contamination. So the actions are as a result of the thoughts about and the anxiety about possible contamination. So those are the obsessive thoughts, right? Whereas with obsessive compulsive disorder, there's often several compulsive acts related to obsessive thoughts that comprise all of these behaviors. So for instance, Howie Mandel has severe obsessive compulsive disorder. He does have a branch of germophobia, right? Where he does acts like he won't touch people's hands.
Right.
He'll fist bump.
He won't shake hands.
He'll fist bump,
hugs,
yeah. Everything's very sterile, but he also has repetitive checking and locking actions that he does as a mechanism to relieve his anxiety as well. And he's very aware of his symptomology and his actions, but it's a very tough cycle to break when it's something that kind of discharges all of that anxiety that you feel. So that's OCD, which can have, again, that subcomponent of germophobia or mysophobia. Mysophobia has to have just singularly the focus on contamination fears, right? So much so that the clinician can't identify anything else that could be, you know, as a result of this behavior. You know, it couldn't be that they're genuinely afraid because they have MRSA in the house, right? Somebody came to their house and they have MRSA, or they have bed bugs, right? Something is.
So there's not legitimate
something going on that they are really fearful of. If you know, actual contamination occurred around us, like
they live in Kenya and they're surrounded by Ebola,
right? You know, things like that,
which would genuinely be like, okay, that's a legitimate fear.
So you don't have a phobia in that respect. You have a legitimate fear of something that could potentially kill you or deeply harm you. It's when the fear goes beyond what is reasonable and expected of the circumstances. So, for instance, trying to eradicate all traces of germs or bacteria from every surface, which we touch 300 surfaces every 30 minutes, the average adult. Every 30 minutes, 300 surfaces.
How is that even possible? Wait a minute.
Think about everything you're touching right now.
It's like my legs.
Your legs, your arms, every time you reach here,
book,
everything.
The glass. Okay.
Every 30 minutes.
Wow.
300 objects. So try and imagine the anxiety buildup of feeling as though your entire world has, let's see, what's something that grosses you out? Like just makes your skin crawl.
I mean, I would, I don't know something specific, but like I can just imagine seeing everything is almost moving and living and crawling in your head as you're touching it,
So when I think about what
spiders,
mysophobias, what mysophobics could be going through, I think of how I felt when I was in like 7th grade and I got lice, and I just felt constantly disgusting and unclean. And I feared seeing one of them again because it was so disgusting to me, and everything around me could potentially have one. And so I have to imagine that, but on a scale that's so much more magnified that it consumes my life for years on end and prevents me from doing even daily activities.
Ugh, that's crazy. I can think of maggots. When that thing, you go into your kid's room and they've got a sandwich that's behind their
like I did the other day after school ended.
Kids are so gnarly when it comes to that stuff.
Petri dishes.
It's like you can't put your lunch from school and just toss it behind your bed or your couch or in a corner somewhere. Like, we're going to find it in a month and it's going to be covered in mold and maggots.
Disgusting.
And, whatever. So that kind of thing, right? When you find a piece of something in your, maybe in the refrigerator way in the back, or something that's been sitting out underneath something in the fruit bowl, and then you lift it up and it's just all nasty and gnarly.
But imagine that everywhere that you see somebody could have touched, or you touched after you touched something that somebody else touched. Let's think about, what you go into the grocery store. We worked at a grocery store, right? We worked at Trader Joe's. How many times was a can? Right.
It's a love story.
Ooh.
Trader Joe's
a love story. On the next episode. That's our other podcast.
It's before we became rich and famous.
All the salacious stories. But think of how many times before a customer got that can, how many times it was touched before that.
Oh, yeah.
And before it got on the truck, how many times it was touched by someone. And before it got off the conveyor belt, to keep put in the box.
What about the money that they're handing us? I mean, that's
exactly
like 1,000 times more. I mean, that thing's probably been touched, like 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Or who knows how many.
ATM machines, gas machines, our cell phones, all incredibly soiled with bacteria and germs and laden with feces and fecal matter.
Oh, fecal matter.
Fecal matter.
Do you remember when Oprah used to do those specials where she would talk about, like, she would bring in experts and they would talk about.
I think you stayed home from school way too much.
How much fecal matter was on the top of like a soda can.
Yeah.
And how much fecal matter was on like your toilet seat and like on your, whatever, all that stuff. So explain to me what a mysophobic view on the 5-second rule would be. Because, that's really important to me. I mean, there is no
5-second rule with a mysophobic. They really struggle to differentiate between a dangerous and innocuous, amount of germs, right? Because germs are everywhere. We are part of our living is encountering germs and illness and things like that, so that our bodies can repair and become more resilient.
Right. Germs are not a bad thing.
No.
Germs are not a bad thing.
And bacteria is definitely not a bad thing.
Bacteria is a good thing, right?
Dude, like 1/3 of our wait, let me see the statistic. I don't want to have a misnomer. Let's see. Bacteria make up 1/3 of the weight of our intestines.
Wow.
So they play a pivotal role.
1/3 of the weight?
The weight of our intestines.
That's really interesting, because I wouldn't even have thought about that as being like something that would have weight.
The flora and the fauna down there are very important in our mental health too. The more and more they're studying it recently, the more and more they're linking gut health to brain health.
Right.
And it's very interesting how the fear of being sick can also like live inside of you too, like it's
You're not
inside of
get
you.
Away from it.
You can't,
really
that's what I'm trying to say.
And that's it. We've talked about this a lot with antibiotics, because I know when Hank was little, he took a round of antibiotics, and antibiotics are like a nuclear bomb inside your stomach. They blow up all the good bacteria, all the bad bacteria. And I learned a lot about gut health around that time. I was in the hospital for like 4 days, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. And then we went and figured it out. We're like, wait a minute, he was on antibiotics like a month ago. Maybe we should get him a really strong probiotic. And all of a sudden he was like, within hours, he was better. So our body, everything, bacteria is really important, germs are very important,
Right.
right? I mean,
well, and every time we get sick, we build up a little more resilience. And so with mesophobes, it often perpetuates. I'm sorry, I keep saying it. Mysophobes. It often perpetuates their fear because when they do encounter an illness, like a common cold, they become more anxious and more fearful and more determined to avoid that next time. But really, they're inhibiting their systems from becoming stronger in fighting against those things that are normal, everyday things that we encounter. So yeah, there's a lot of things that they can't go around. They won't go around animals. They avoid physical contact. They avoid crowds, and they especially avoid children because children are petri dishes of disease. And so you can see how this would be really difficult as a mesophobe to really
mesophobic
on a day-to-day basis exist. It would be just incredibly anxiety inducing.
So we all grew up with that one mom, and my mom wasn't like this, although she was pretty hardcore about making sure everything was clean and sanitized all the time, but it wasn't so much sanitized as much as just cleaned. But we all knew that mom growing up, friend's mom or somebody that we knew that was just like ridiculous. Like everything was bleached all the time. Everything was constantly scrubbed down. It was, hey, here, use this sanitizing wipe, use this, this constant kind of fear, this over sanitizing. And that's a problem too, right?
Oh, big time.
As far as your health, like that's not a good thing necessarily.
Right. Like, we think of hand washing. Hand washing is great at key times, right? When it's needed, after handling raw meats,
like after you wipe your butt,
after fecal matter, any bodily fluids,
after you throw your poop against the wall,
those kinds of things.
Anybody else do that?
Bueller?
Am I the only one? Damn it.
But if you wash your hands too frequently, you run the risk of infection because of dry, cracked hands. So your body's naturally going to tell you like, hey, this is too much, right?
Interesting. So you get cracked hands from over sanitizing, and then you're inviting more things into your system because your hands are cracked.
And there's a lot of fear of things not being sterile, right? So what happens if things are contaminated is really the fear of it. So they act out sterility as a means of controlling that anxiety about contamination.
Wow.
But I mean, here's some fun facts about biology, because I'm not a biologist. So I had to get these facts from somewhere.
Do you play one on TV?
But I play one on TV. Fun facts about biology from author Mary Roach's Stiff, The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers. She's the one that noted that bacteria make up 1/3 of the weight of our intestines. And she also provided some statistics courtesy of the University of Arizona microbiologist Dr. Charles Gerber, who coincidentally gave his son the middle name Escherichia, which is the E in E. coli.
Oh, wow.
Nerdy.
Wow, that's nerd. That is some serious nerd right there.
Right. So some of her research included noted antibacterial products that have the biggest marketing coup since bottled water. So note that, right? There's a huge marketing coup going on with antibacterial products. Although most of them only specify the word germ. What is it? Like, is it a cootie? Is it a virus? Is it a bacteria? Like, it doesn't say. It just says germ, but there's no such thing as germ.
Right. Germ isn't really a thing.
No, it's not a thing.
It's not a thing.
But antibacterial stuff really does not do a whole lot. So in a study from Dr. Elaine Larson at Columbia, also noted by author Mary Roach, she said that they did some research on 2 households with at least one preschooler, one that used all antibacterial stuff and one that didn't, for 48 weeks. So that's a long time. And at the end of it, or not at the end, throughout, they measured things like illness, symptoms of allergies, like all kinds of things. They measured it throughout from both families. And then they took the results and they figured out that at the end of the study, it was about the same level of cold, flu, food poisoning symptoms as
So no difference.
No difference overall in the use of one antibacterial versus no antibacterial product. So
it's all just
marketing.
It's all just marketing.
Marketing coup. It's a gigantic marketing coup. So when we look at the data, that really kind of shows us the shift. Hand washing is important at specific times, again, for sanitary reasons. But other than that, the more we interact with viruses and bacteria and stuff, the better our immune system becomes with every illness. So again, not a biologist here, but there was one case of mysophobia, strictly
Mysophobia?
Damn it.
Mysophobia.
Yeah, every time I look at you, I say mysophobia because of that face you make.
Mysophobia.
Okay, mysophobia as a result of a brain tumor. Once they removed the brain tumor, the mysophobia resolved entirely. And this was a woman who was spending over $1,000 a month in cleaning supplies.
Wow.
$1,000 a month in cleaning.
Wow.
Right? So
I'd say that's a little better than the chick who just liked to eat Comet.
Right.
I mean, that's not good for you.
So cases of OCD, often are found in traumatic brain injuries, brain tumors.
You just smoothed right over that.
What?
Don't you remember that episode?
I know.
The laundry detergent and Comet, where she just liked to eat it.
Oh,
it was
yes.
Like the strange, what is that show called?
My Strange Addiction.
My Strange Addiction. Yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
Just breezed right over that.
Sorry.
It's better to spend $1,000 a month on cleaning products than eating cleaning products, I guess. That was my point.
That's true. So either way, it's the left hemisphere action with
my goal is to throw you off your game.
I know, and you are.
She gets so stuck to her notes, folks. She gets her glasses on and she just gets right into her notes.
Shut up.
Which I love. It's great. But I'm throwing you. I got to throw a little wrench in there every now and then.
Well, also to be of note with this mesophobic as a result of the brain tumor, she also had kind of a personality disorder diagnosis. So there's some things also to consider there. But overall, living with the fear of germs or contamination or uncleanliness or, any of those things would be so debilitating to your everyday life.
What's the most extreme? I mean, that's obviously an example of an extreme, right? $1,000 a month in cleaning products.
Right.
I would suspect that would also come with some health hazards as well, right?
Absolutely.
Being around cleaning products that much and being like
inhaling
them and constantly having them around. We know that they're they have a place, but they're not.
And they're probably not going outside much because they're fearing things in the air that they can't see. There's a lot of concerns. I feel the anxiety right now, like just talking about all of this stuff that they would have to think about when managing this kind of anxiety.
Like public restrooms, right? We know those people who can't go into a public restroom or cannot go to the bathroom anywhere but
home.
At home. Right. And sometimes it's germs. Sometimes it's more of like a space thing or a personal whatever deal. But like myself, I really don't care. Like I can plop my ass down on a toilet seat in a restroom.
You can brown anywhere.
It doesn't bother me. It literally doesn't bother me one bit. And I laugh at people that it bothers. I think it's really funny that it's a weird thing for people because I'm like, who cares? Am I disgusting? Probably. Yes. But it just doesn't bother me like at all. I don't use the little seat cover because they've proven that does nothing.
No.
So, it just doesn't bother me. I don't hover, I know girls all hover. But I know people who literally cannot, they cannot go anywhere but at home or anywhere, but they cannot use a public restroom. And I understand they're nasty, but are they that much nastier than the bathroom at a fancy restaurant? Probably not that much more.
Probably not, considering, it's still just human.
Or your bathroom at home.
Oh, your bathroom at home is disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, it's all over your toothbrush, folks.
Yeah.
We've learned that. Oprah taught us that.
If
There's
your
fecal matter on your
toothbrush is anywhere near your toilet.
Yep. It's all over it.
But so the thing with mesophobe too.
Mysophobia.
I'm never going to get
Mysophobia.
this. Mysophobia. Okay. I got to do it like that. Mysophobics. The thing with this is, again, it kind of perpetuates and builds on itself. So they use the sanitary items and then they get sick, right? And then they use more and more sanitary items.
So they're like, I need to use more. I gotta get more of this stuff.
I'm not right. And it can actually cause physiological response with actual no virus or symptomology, like no physical symptomology associated with it. So no virus, no bacteria, right? But you can still experience symptoms. So the anxiety actually can produce symptoms.
So does it lead to like hypochondriac type behaviors or things like that, where people are they're so concerned about germs that they think they're sick all the time, or they think that they're contaminated, or they think that they're...
So it's like OCD versus hypochondria versus mysophobia, right? So they're all mysophobia. They're all kind of on this like...
Sorry, I'm just correcting every time.
Okay, I know. They're kind of on this like totem pole of anxiety, right? And so hypochondriacs fear the disease or becoming ill, right? They don't fear the germs associated with becoming ill or the contamination and becoming ill. They fear becoming ill by any means.
Wow.
So by growing old, by any sort of pain is automatically it's cancer. It's a tumor.
That's me.
Right? So they really have more of an obsession with the germs causing an illness than anything else. So with hypochondriacs and with misophobics, you can see this intense physical... Misophobics. Now you just laughed at me.
I didn't want to correct again.
Misophobics. You can see
it's going to get annoying in the episode.
I know. I'm sorry.
Not you, me. Everybody else is like, just let her fucking talk.
So yeah.
But it's just funny because I want to say it like Jar Jar. I like it.
So for example, this like anxiety causing a physical response, right? Let's take, for instance, the time I was flying home from college on an airplane and I had brought my cat Autumn with me and I had stowed her in a crate underneath my seat front in front of me. And she had been perfectly quiet the whole entire flight. And I was sitting in the middle seat between this woman and this man who was asleep the whole time. And we make it the whole 4.5-hour flight from Louisiana to Reno. And on descent, Autumn starts meowing and she goes, "Oh my God, is that a cat?" And I was like, yeah, it's a cat. She's like, "I am allergic. I am so allergic to cat."
It's been on the flight for what, 2 hours?
Yep.
3 hours?
No, like 4.5 hours from Lafayette.
Oh
and I was like, "Woman, you have been breathing the same recycled air as that pussy down there. You're fine." But she was so convinced that she made her own nose run and like flagged over the flight attendants and made this on descent. Like, what are they going to do on descent? Wait 10 minutes. You've already been there. But
and the flight attendant didn't say, "Hello, you've been with this cat for 4 hours and haven't had any problems."
God bless flight attendants and their patience. But anyways, so yeah, that's this.
Although cats are from the devil and
true.
They are terrible.
We did
and
learn
they do
that.
make your head explode.
Yes.
And there is a connection with that episode and this episode too, which we'll get to soon as well.
So those are all really my fun facts. If you have mysophobia,
Mysophobia?
Sorry, I did it again. If you have mysophobia, definitely don't see me. Maybe go see someone for response and prevention therapy, which kind of decreases anxiety in enacting a ritual, so that you don't allow yourself to enact the ritual. You just kind of sit and experience the anxiety, but in a safe manner. Combo of therapy and meds like SSRIs or antidepressants are helpful with managing those kinds of things in the short term. But really cognitive restructuring, relaxation training, and education about biology and what you can and can't escape. Maybe it'll make it worse. I don't know. It might make it worse, actually.
Going to the Arco bathroom and doing your meditation and yoga.
Do not lick the toilet seat in the Arco bathroom.
That won't help cure you?
It will not.
No?
No. You will get very ill. That's just ill-advised. Don't do that.
Go to the middle of
Maybe you just like go to it a little bit, but like with your therapist.
Go to the dump and do all of your yoga and your meditation techniques so that you can surround yourself.
Do not lick a urinal cake.
No urinal cakes?
You'll be forever
delicious.
unclean. Forever unclean.
Forever
They've been marinating forever.
Roxanne was kind of a germaphobe.
He was a little bit of a germaphobe.
Yeah, in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah. FX is the league. Good show.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Hey, I want to talk about our movies. Do you want to talk about our movies?
I do. We have a lot of movies. Well, we're going to do a full honorable mention today. We're going to do a full feature presentation. We got a lot of movies that we need to mention.
Yeah.
That are just side. We considered making this a 2-part episode, which we might do at some point in the future, but I think we're just too lazy to do a 2-part episode. Because that's just a lot of one topic, and we get attention deficit disorder.
You don't want to edit that much.
Well, I wouldn't want to do it all in one sitting. I would want to do 2 separate episodes, but just on the same topic.
Right.
Because there's a lot to talk about here about germs and, the Black Plague and the bubonic plague and fever and all the historical aspects of this type of thing.
So
right?
much talking.
So much stuff, but we won't dive into all of that. We'll maybe we'll get into a little bit of that as we get into our movies, but let's go ahead and we'll transition into our movies, and we'll start off with our honorable mentions. Hey, Kris.
Hey, Drew.
Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast?
Why, yes, I have.
When we were trying to get this podcast off the ground, we had a lot of questions. Like, how do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen to? How do we make money podcasting? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now just by reading this ad.
Right now?
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now?
That means if you want to get a podcast going and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. Join me and Kris and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. We can't wait to hear your podcast. So we got lots of fun virus type movies.
What's up first?
There's lots of them. There's lots of them. So coming up with the ones we were going to choose.
Coming down with them is
coming
better.
down with them. Coming up with them.
Because it's a virus.
Deciding which ones to do was really hard, because honestly, it really is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite horror genres. I really love, and not just horror genres, but like dramas and anything that deals with like world-ending virus, outbreaks and things like
Apocalyptic.
that. I think they're really fun. I've always really liked them. It's a subgenre of movies that I really enjoy.
So what is so fun about them? Why do you enjoy them so much?
I don't know. I was going to talk about this later, but when we get into our feature presentation, which is The Stand, which was a mini series, based on Stephen King's book. Obviously, I had read Stephen King's The Stand and another book called Swan Song right around the same time, when I was about 13, 14 years old.
Puberty.
And I really got into them. Like, I was really into those books. And I think
it's like the first adult books that you're actually able to read and like understand.
Yeah. And the miniseries came out that same year. So I must've been 13 because I read the book first. I'm pretty sure I read maybe I read the book after the miniseries, because the miniseries came out in 94 and it had a big impact on me, just like the It miniseries did, but move my cell phone so I don't get any interference. But yeah, for some reason, those types of movies just have always been, I've always loved
resonated
them.
with you.
So I have a bunch of honorable mentions that we'll talk about. We'll focus on one of them, but I wanted to throw these out there just in case you hadn't seen them or you've never seen this one in particular. The Crazies from 1973, I had never seen before. It's a George Romero movie. that they just remade in 2010 with Timothy Oliphant. which you're a fan of.
Timothy.
Are you done?
Yep.
Are you done? Do you need a moment? Do you need
I need a towel.
Do you need a quiet?
I'm just kidding.
A towel from all that
Phew, I'm
gushing.
sweating. Yes.
All that splooshing.
Sploosh.
So George Romero did this movie in 1973, which was kind of ahead of its time. I mean, as a lot of his stuff kind of was about it was a pretty cliche kind of movie theme now, but I think back then it was pretty cutting edge, and it was a government tested contagion finds its way into the water supply.
It's always government.
Yeah, it's always government. And a lot of them are like surrounding, government and
the Stand was too.
Lots of them are. I mean, think about all the, it's always government testing or some sort of biowarfare,
right? Scientific analysis.
Always something like that finds its way into the water supply of a small town in the crazies. And then of course,
chaos ensues.
The army descends and what's the word? Makes them all stay in one place where they can't get
Contains
out.
them?
Well, no, the other word.
Confines them?
No, it puts them in...
secludes them?
No, there's another word that I'm looking for. It's going to drive me crazy. We got to figure this out right now. When you're put into a place where when you're sick and you can't get out and quarantine. Thank you for nothing. Thank you for nothing but looking at me. Like
I gave you like 6 options to rule out.
And they were all wrong.
That led
so
you
they
to the right one.
They quarantine these towns, and then then it's the civil rights versus the government. The government talks about nuking the city to get rid of it and all that stuff. So check out The Crazies 1973, George Romero. It's on a bunch of apps on Roku. I noticed it was on quite a few for free. And then the new one is on, I believe it's on Netflix, which is basically just a remake.
I need to watch that. I did not get a chance.
It was pretty good. It wasn't bad. It was a good remake. Make sure to have all the towels handy for you. I'll have some things to fan yourself. Lord, I got the vapors.
I got the
vapors. The Timothy Oliphant vapors.
Oh man, we got to watch the new Deadwood movie too on HBO. It's out.
That's also got Timothy Oliphant, which
you didn't say.
Which
right.
also reminds me of why Netflix is a giant bunch of bastards because they cancel Santa Clarita Diet, which also has
Netflix is a giant bunch of bastards.
Screw
Hashtag.
But okay, outside of the crazies, we got to talk about Outbreak. From the mid 90s, which was one of my favorites.
High school.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites
in biology.
Loved that one. Contagion, which came out in 2011. I Am Legend. World War.
Oh, the dog dies in that one.
Oh my gosh. World War Z. 12 Monkeys, another one.
Yeah.
Doomsday, which came out in 2008. Cronenberg Shivers and Rabid both deal with viruses of one kind or another. Eli Roth's Cabin Fever, another one that deals with water supply, which
contamination of the water supply.
So there's a lot, and there's was hard for me to kind of decide on what movies to do because there's the virus that gets into like your blood,
right?
And
then there's the airborne,
creates zombies, right? There's a lot of zombie virus movies. Like all of our zombie movies are typically virus movies for the most part, right? They become zombies and it spreads to people. And then there's the like flu-like symptom type movies, right? Where people get just sick, like with the flu, but then all of a sudden everybody's dead.
Yeah.
Right? Like the super flus. So
mass extinction.
So I decided to do one of each, right? So our honorable mention for today is going to be the zombie type, which to me it was a really unique movie. It was a really unique zombie movie, and it was kind of ahead of its time in a lot of ways, and influenced a lot of movies that came after it, which is why I wanted to mention it a little bit more in depth. And that is 2002's 28 Days Later.
wake up today in hospital. I wake up and I'm hallucinating. I've got some bad news. They're infected. Infected? Father. Infected with what? Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
It's the blood. There's something in the blood.
Lesson 1. You never go anywhere alone unless you've got no choice. Hello? Lesson 2. Only travel during daylight unless you've got no choice.
This really is a bad idea. You know why? It's obviously a bad idea.
We have to leave now. More will be coming. They always do.
They're dead. And you're gonna be next.
Directed by Daniel Boyle, who did Trainspotting. He did Slumdog Millionaire. Great movies. I love Trainspotting too. That was one of my favorite movies when I was in like college.
You didn't say it right. It's Millionaire.
Millionaire. Slumdog Millionaire. And it stars Cillian Murphy, who plays he's Tommy Shelby on Peaky Blinders. So if you've been watching that show at all, that guy. He's also Scarecrow in Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Which is the one
really cool.
You recognized him from.
Yeah,
right?
I did.
So what
That's
was
my favorite of the Batman.
Let me read the little synopsis of this one, and then I want to hear what you thought of it because you watched this one for the first time.
I did.
So let me read the synopsis of 28 Days Later. A group of misguided animal rights activists free a caged chimp infected with the rage virus from a medical research lab. When London bike courier Jim, played by Cillian Murphy, wakes up from a coma a month after, 28 days later, he finds his city all but deserted. On the run from the zombie-like victims of the rage, Jim stumbles upon a group of survivors, including Selena, played by Naomi Harris, and cab driver Frank, played by Brendan Gleeson, and joins them on a perilous journey to what he hopes will be safety. So what do you think of 28 Days Later? What was your first impressions?
My first impression I could sum up in one phrase, and that's from Hudson, who also watched this movie with us.
He watched a little bit of it with us, yeah.
He did.
And it was 8-year-old.
And it was when the animal rights activists were fighting off the scientist who was screaming at them like, they're infected, don't do it.
Don't release them, they're infected.
And Hudson, sitting on the couch, said, what an idiot.
What an idiot. Should have listened to the scientist.
Should have listened to the scientist.
No, it's not endorsing testing on chimpanzees.
No, but also if they say that it's infected, you should probably handle with care.
Yeah, don't open the cage. Not
handle
smart.
with care.
Which I love. I love the ones that always begin with like the monkeys, like Outbreak did too, right? Outbreak and 12 monkeys, and
it's always like that. Oh man, like you did that, really?
You done did that?
You done did that.
Hey, Ron.
You in some trouble, AA Ron.
Yeah. Whenever that happens, whenever you see the chimp comes out, you know that there's going to be problems. And actually, I love the way this movie starts. It starts with the chimp like strapped to the bed, which is really sad. But they're having him like watch all of these disaster stuff. Right? So they're doing testing on him, like psychological testing, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Right. To see what things pop up, or maybe that's part of how they created the virus. I don't know. But this chimp is like watching all of these apocalyptic type events on multiple screens. So it's kind of a foreshadow of like what was going to actually happen, which was mass hysteria and
total destruction.
Things, right? So the chimp attacks one of the animal rights activists. The rage virus goes into effect within like 20 seconds. So it's instantaneous.
It hits pretty hard.
It goes hard. And then all of a sudden the zombie is created, which there's a lot of debate about whether these are zombies or not. You know, that they're called the infected. Is
it a human?
There's a debate about whether they're zombies or if they're, whatever they are.
It's a human body with a virus soul.
Are they dead, or are they dead that have come back to life, or are they just infected and become ravenous?
Kind of like rabies.
Right. So because we're dead people too. So there's people who just died.
Right.
But then there's people who were infected that are running around and going nuts, and they die of starvation. So are they really zombies because they die of starvation, right? So they're not dead already. They're alive. They're not undead. They're just super fucked up.
Right.
Right. So they're not the undead coming back to life. So, but they're zombie-like, right? And then there's people who say, well, and that they also give credit to this movie as kind of introducing the fast zombie, which, some people look back to like Return of the Living Dead, and there's been a few others where the zombies aren't like super slow and lumbering, but as far as like just super speedy, crazy, fast zombies, like these guys
are kind of scary fast.
Yeah, they're super, super fast, and
they're athletes.
And World War Z really, really this was the zombies that World War Z, Max Brooks and those guys that they really
kind of
modeled after for sure. Right. I mean, these were the super fast zombies. Yeah. I mean, in World War Z, remember they were crawling all over the fences and, so definitely kind of takes off that. Right. And we see where, a lot of, so after the chimp infects the animal rights activist chick, we see Jim waking up in the hospital. Nobody's around, right? Which is very similar to like Walking Dead and a lot of these, right? A lot of these movies that came after had that same kind of thing where you had this person waking up and the world has changed 28 days later, right? The world is nuts. London is deserted.
Nothing's the same.
He walks around the hospital and nobody's there.
Alone.
Yeah. He thinks he's alone now. It doesn't seem to be anyone around except for Tiffany. Tiffany's there singing that song. And then he goes outside and he's wandering around and still like nothing. London's deserted, right? Filming for this was kind of cool because they shut down certain parts of the city for them to film from like 4 a.m. to like 7 a.m. on Sundays.
Oh,
so that people
was awful, I bet.
Were just there's nobody around, but they had to close down certain streets too, like for him to walk down the middle of like highways and bridges and things like that. And in order for them to not piss off like traffic, because people would have to wait for like an hour, and like wouldn't be able to like turn around. They'd have to just sit and wait. They had super hot chicks out telling the drivers that they had to wait, and apparently it worked. Apparently it worked.
Man, you guys are easy.
Yeah, right. Apparently. So anyway, so then he meets up with these other survivors, and then they go. It's kind of that same. We've seen this trope before, right? They go through. They find another a daughter and a father who are up in an apartment. They team up with them. Meanwhile, they're fighting off, these zombie creatures every now and then. And then, we finally get to the place where you just talking about, I don't know, where the blood drops into the eye of the father. And then he turns infected. And that's a really cool scene. And then we go into this weird end of the movie where they're with these military dudes who are all a bunch of assholes. And then it just kind of goes bonkers from there.
Super.
But finally at the end, you've got Jim and Naomi. Stella was her name. What was her name?
Stella.
Selena and Jim. So Selena, Jim, and the little girl are the only ones left. And they end up going out in the country and getting help. And at the very end of the movie, they're rescued by there's a jet that flies by. And I think we're supposed to assume that that's the U.S. military, because in 28 weeks later, the U.S. military has moved in and created like a safe zone. Right. Okay. Which we see in the sequel.
Right.
So great movie, really unique, kind of has handheld kind of style almost too. And a real interesting like cinematography.
It's pretty. I love
it kind of has that BBC kind of feel to it a little bit. Which, and I know, what's his name, who did Edgar Wright, who did Shaun of the Dead, was already writing Shaun of the Dead when this movie came out. and was super stoked that it came out when it did, because it was perfect timing for Shaun of the Dead to then come out like right after and kind of play off, almost spoof a London virus zombie movie.
That's great timing.
It was great timing. So
Great marketing.
28 days later, that's our zombie virus movie. But I really want to focus on our feature presentation because it just means a lot to me. It's one of those movies that I have a really strong personal connection with. And I got to show it to you for the first time this week. I found a Stephen King box set, DVD box set that had The Stand on it and a bunch of other Stephen King movies.
Next, we're watching The Langoliers.
Yeah, which I don't think I've ever seen Langoliers, which is, I've heard, is considered one of the worst. One of the worst Stephen King adaptations ever. But I got to show you The Stand. And so let's talk about our feature presentation, 1994's The Stand.
And now our feature presentation.
From Stephen King, the master of suspense, comes his all-time bestseller.
Containment breach! We've had a major containment breach! Use the manual gate override, Captain! Do it now! Captain, you have to close the gate!
A deadly virus released by a government mistake. A frantic military willing to stop at nothing to cover up the terrible truth.
The so-called super flu does not exist.
What did you do? What did you think you do? As the plague sweeps out of control, a nation erupts, society crumbles, the end is here.
The monster's here! The darkness here!
Now, all that remains, the demon, the prophet, and those chosen to survive. Drawn by dreams of an old woman.
Be coming along to see me, won't you, Larry?
The chosen ones stream to Colorado to find their dreams are real.
Help us to be true, dear Lord. Help us to stand.
In Las Vegas, an army of darkness assembles, controlled by dreams of their leader, Randall Flagg. Go for it.
Do it, Harold, do it! It's time to make your stand.
The ultimate stand against the forces of evil. San Giacomo, Gary Sinise, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Ruby Dee, and Jamie Sheridan. Stephen King's The Stand.
My life for you.
MOON. That spells The Stand.
My life for you.
MOON. That spells 1994's The Stand.
That spells Stephen King's The Stand. MOON.
I would say The Stand is the Godfather of all post-apocalyptic movies.
Oh, dang. That is a large statement to make.
Definitely post-apocalyptic horror.
Are you prepared to back that up?
Absolutely. I mean, it came out. So the book came out in 1978, and it was. I mean, yeah, there were virus movies that came before it, and there were some apocalyptic type movies that came before it, but The Stand was really, really like kind of put it all together.
The first of its kind.
The first of its kind, and so much stuff since then has been modeled after it. I mean, I would, you look at, and other books too. Like I was talking about, for me, when I was like 14 years old, this was the book that I read, like The Stand and Swan Song by Robert, who wrote Swan Song? Swan Song was written by Robert Mick. I have it in my notes here somewhere because I haven't seen it in a long time. Robert, where is it? Must not be very good notes since I can't find them.
I do that when I write too many notes too.
Oh, Robert McCammon. And honestly, these are my, all-time favorite. These are probably my all-time favorite books when I was that age. Like I read them and was so fascinated by, and Swan Song had kind of a similar kind of vibe to it. It was a nuclear apocalypse, and then, kind of a good and evil, same kind of good and evil fighting across the country, going to different places, traveling across,
reestablishing civilization.
Yeah, that kind of vibe. And so I love them. I think they were just amazing. But there's no doubt about it that The Stand is like it's considered by most Stephen King fans either say it or The Stand as their favorite books of all time. Definitely the top.
We should put a poll up.
Top two. And that's pretty universal. Like people who've read Stephen King, those are just their favorite books, one or the other. Like Jen Ferratu just posted up, because I posted up a picture of my copy of The Stand, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's my favorite book, which I already knew because I listened to her podcast. So,
well, you owe her, because the other day you freaked her out with your mother's scars.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry, Jen. I'm sorry for freaking you out with my mom's scars.
You owe her.
I put up a picture of my mom's. My mom just had surgery, colon surgery, but they had to open her up and had big old ass
gnarly scars
and sutures and stuff across her whole belly. And I was laughing because I said she needed to get a tattoo of Chucky on her stomach now that she has these cool scars. It'd be perfect with Chucky's face. And so I superimposed a picture of Chucky on her stomach and sent it around. And Jen has a fear of scars. So we're sorry, Jen. We will get to a fear of scars at some point on this podcast. So that's a good one. I like that.
We should interview Jen during that one.
That would be fun. I like that. It's a good idea. But yeah, The Stand is Jen's favorite book, and it was probably one of my all-time favorite books too. And I'm getting ready to reread it because I don't think I've reread it since I was in high school. So that's something that I'm excited to do now that we've been getting into this. I'm like, oh man, I got to read that book again. It's just such a good book. But the basis before we dive into the miniseries, like I want to talk about the book a little bit, and I want to talk about Stephen King's inspiration for writing the book, which was Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. He wanted to write an American epic Lord of the Rings style kind of book, right? And so this is what he said. He said, for a long time, 10 years at least, I had wanted to write a fantasy epic like The Lord of the Rings, only with an American setting. I just couldn't figure out how to do it. Then slowly after my wife and kids and I moved to Boulder, Colorado, I saw a 60-minute segment on CBW, Chemical Biological Warfare. I never forgot the gruesome footage of the test mice shuddering, convulsing, and dying, all in 20 seconds or less. That got me remembering a chemical spill in Utah that killed a bunch of sheep. These were canisters on their way to some burial ground. They fell off the truck and ruptured. I remembered a news reporter saying if the winds had been blowing the other way, there was Salt Lake City. This incident later served as the basis of a movie called Rage, starring George C. Scott. I wonder if that's how they got the name for the rage virus in 28 Days Later.
Maybe.
But before it was released, I was deep into The Stand, finally writing my American fantasy epic set in a plague-decimated USA. Only instead of a hobbit, my hero was a Texan named Stu Redman. And instead of a dark lord, my villain was a ruthless drifter and supernatural madman named Randall Flagg. The land of Mordor, where the shadows lie, according to Tolkien, was played by Las Vegas, which I thought was
the city
so
of
cool.
sin. So apropos for all of
Mordor. I'm gonna start calling Vegas Mordor.
Yeah, Mordor. The
going
gates
down
of
to Mordor.
Yeah, driving down there, it's like it at night.
Oh, I love driving down there. Actually, I just posted up a picture of us in Tonopah at the Clown Motel
with all of the best little penthouses on the way.
Oh yeah, the little penthouses.
Yeah,
all the trailers.
Yeah, Petticoat Junction.
Oh, those trailers. Oh, the whorehouses. Yeah, got them whorehouses. Best little whorehouse in Nevada. So the book was originally released in 1978, and it was around 1,200 pages when he finished it. But his publisher told him in 1978 that they couldn't do it. They would either have to break it into two books,
it out,
which they didn't want to do. So they basically said, "Hey, you got to knock out like 400 pages of this bitch. Like it's just way freaking too long. Cut it out." So
being so wordy.
So he cut out 400 pages out of the book, which I don't know how you would do. That would be just like the most grueling, painstaking process ever. Like I can't understand
Like,
how that.
well, by the time it gets to print too,
Ugh.
and then they're like,
Yeah, 400. We need about 400
no.
pages trimmed off of this thing.
That would be really tough.
But never fear, Stephen King fans, because 12 years later, in 1990, the one that I have in my hand right now, which was the complete and uncut version, came out, which was the full 1,200 pages. I think it kind of got a resurgence, a repopularity after the new uncut version came out. So it just had a huge impact on me. It was fascinating. It was fascinating to me, the whole concept of viral apocalypse, like that this could happen, you know, that this is a genuine thing. And even now, right, it's even more crazy now. We get so much news about Ebola and, you know, the swine flu and the bird flu,
measles,
measles, right? Yeah.
Then hand sanitizer is on germs.
It affected more people.
Germs, quotation
hand sanitizer
marks.
kills germs. Yeah, so it affected the entire few cases in the United States. But think about if you lived in the early 1900s or in medieval times with the plague or whatever, where literally like these are things that this would wipe out
everyday
half of the population of Europe, you know. Spanish flu killed how many millions and millions now? You could be breathing across from me right now and I might be diseased. You have no idea.
I know you're diseased.
You could drop dead at any moment.
Is your breath that bad?
It's pretty bad. But I mean, that's just a natural fear that we have, right? That this could happen to us. It could just at any moment we could succumb to some. I mean, it fascinated me so much, and then the apocalyptic side of it, right? That it was ushering in some sort of good versus evil battle or whatever. It's very biblical. It's very Book of Revelation.
I find it very interesting, though, that people survived because they were immune, and I saw that same theme in like, in 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later,
right,
too, where certain people are immune for some question mark reason.
Well, in The Stand, it's not really a question mark, right? Because we have this like biblical hand of God, right, on certain people, and they're going in and they have these visions of this Mother Abigail, and then some people have these visions of this Randall Flagg, this dark man, you know, these characters which will
man. Fighter of the light men.
Well played.
I know that's not how it goes, but
you've got this very kind of religious overtone, and King was always really good about that. And actually, I've always been impressed by King's like theology too. Like he's really good at like getting biblical stuff like kind of right, which is rare, right? People just kind of like pick and choose like verses, or they pick and choose like little themes in the Bible or whatever. But he actually got a lot of the stuff pretty right, you know, pretty right on. And there's quotes.
A concubine
probably did. I mean, it probably does.
True.
He's probably still wearing denim on denim.
Yeah. And rocking that mullet, that full sweet mullet.
But one of the things that I think is really interesting too, when you compare King's big books, right? His It versus, because that clown,
it's fucking terrifying.
Pennywise is a boogeyman, right?
Yeah.
I was listening to
The Bump in the Night.
I was listening to a new podcast that I hadn't listened to much before, but the Stephen King cast, which is great. If you love Stephen King's books and stuff, it's awesome. It goes really in depth in all of his books. But one of the things he said on there, comparing the It and The Stand, was Pennywise is every child's boogeyman, right? Whereas Randall Flagg is every adult's boogeyman. The dark man in The Stand, this Antichrist, this demonic, whether he's the devil himself or whether he's a demon or whether he's whatever, this causer of chaos, he is kind of every adult's boogeyman. And so that's kind of the parallel between the two. And I think that's a really cool way of looking at kind of his works.
Yeah,
and,
that's interesting.
Yeah. And why those things have been, you know, why those characters are such iconic characters in Stephen King's
world.
In his world. Yeah. Speaking of worlds, The Stand also, by the way, while we're still talking about the book itself, the characters in The Stand, like Randall Flagg and stuff, pop up. They all pop up in Dark Tower series and stuff too. So that's part of his bigger universe. Like there's this whole connected universe in some of Stephen King's books, and The Stand is a really big one when it comes to like the Dark Tower.
Do you think they'll touch on that in Castle Rock?
Absolutely. I think they already have.
Yeah.
In some ways. Yeah. Which I'm not a Stephen King, like I don't know as much as a lot of people do. I'm kind of just now getting into like I saw the movies for. I was like, yeah, I won't read the book, but now I really want to read all of his books. So I would like to understand more about his kind of connections.
He definitely has an inclination towards the pull of good and evil. Like when we look at The Stand, it starts off and there's like two subsets of people that find each other.
Hold on. So we haven't gotten into the movie yet.
Oh, sorry.
So I just want to finish out the book. So that was kind of what the book, right? That whole adult boogeyman thing, right? So the miniseries came out in 94. And I do want to say like the miniseries was a little bit, it's dated. It's a product of its time. It's a product of the limitations of
the 90s
network television in the 90s. Right. So it's not amazing, but I love it. I personally love it.
I'm interested to hear.
And actually, you liked it a lot.
I did. I enjoyed it.
I was surprised. Like, I thought you were going to be like bored and like be like, oh my gosh, this is like not understanding why
it's going. And I'm interested to see the differences in the book that you notice.
Well, and that was the thing. I haven't read the book in so long. I know there's certain characters. Like I know like the character of Nadine Cross. I believe she's a combination of, there was Nadine and Rita, I think, in the original book, and they kind of combined them. And I know Rita committed suicide. There was a whole storyline.
There was a lot of
there's a lot of storylines that got kind of just left out because you can't do even a miniseries. It's impossible to do a 1,200 page book, in a miniseries. So there's some things. But let's dive in. 1994. Let me give you a quick synopsis, and then we'll dive into the miniseries part of this. But a miniseries adaptation. The human race is 99% wiped out by a government-invented superflu. The remaining survivors take sides in the forces of good and evil. A mysterious old woman named Mother Abigail, who's a servant of God, and a powerful and deadly dark man named Randall Flagg, who is the author of chaos, a demon, or even the devil himself. A gas station attendant, a rock star, a mute, a professor, a farmer, a socialite, a disabled man, a judge, a teenager, a mother, and a nerd together. But it's hard to do in a miniseries. And I think they did as good as they could do at the time. It's directed by our favorite man, not his full name.
I know.
Mick Garris. Mick Garris directs it. Who we talked about a lot in our Fear of Cats Sleepwalkers episode.
Right.
And this came out right after Sleepwalkers.
Okay.
In fact, I think him working on Sleepwalkers was the reason why Stephen King brought him on to do The Stand. In fact, he just check out Mick Garris's podcast, Postmortem with Mick Garris. Him just they talked about The Stand quite a bit. They talked about like some of their older movies they did together.
I should listen to that.
It's a really good episode. And really the star of The Stand, before we get into like all the actors and stuff, is John Bloom, AKA Joe Bob Briggs.
He's really the star of this film.
He has a sweet cameo. It's actually a pretty decent little role.
A damn handsome man when he was young. Well, and now.
And he plays Deputy Joe Bob Brentwood.
Joe Bob Brentwood.
But besides Joe Bob, there's a few other main players. Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan, plays Stu Redman.
Lieutenant Dan.
Molly Ringwald. You're gonna moan. I get to moan too.
I was laughing.
Molly Ringwald as Boy's Dream. Maybe Boys and Girls Dream. I don't know. Then there was Jamie Sheridan, who played Randall Flagg, the Dark Man, who we also recognized him from the League as well. Speaking of the League.
Yep.
He was a bit
Fighter
character.
of the Nightman?
He was Fighter of the Nightman.
Master of the Sun?
Master of the Sun. And then Laura San Giacomo, who played Nadine Cross. And I always had the hots for her. She was on Just Shoot Me with David Spade. And she was also in Pretty Woman.
Oh, that's where I know her from.
Yeah, I think she was like
but with his head.
Trash Can Man, played by Matt Frewer.
Yeah.
Great character actor.
Trash Can.
Rob Lowe was Nick Andros, who was deaf and dumb in the movie. And actually did a pretty good job.
Is he supposed to be Jesus? Or the Jesus-like figure?
No, he's just kind of like a prophet, like very like there's a couple of characters that are kind of like especially connected to God. And then you have Ray Walston, Glenn Bateman, better known as Mr. Hand from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Mr. Hand.
And if you're old or from the Nick at Night generation, he was also Martin in My Favorite Martian, which was from the 60s. And then there's just a ton of cameos, like ridiculous amount of cameos. Stephen King, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kathy Bates, Ed Harris, tons of directors, Tom Holland, Sam Raimi, Mick Garris himself, of course. So we start out with the virus, and the virus is called Captain Trips. They have a name for it. And Stephen King apparently dreamed up Captain Trips back in like the 60s in a short story that he wrote called Normal Symptoms.
At first.
And then so it was easy for the government to be like,
just flu, you're
just the flu.
overreacting,
You know,
or your local news is wrong.
And then people start dropping like flies. And as the world, right, 99.4% of the world dies, there's a handful of people that start having these visions. Some have visions of this old black woman in Nebraska. Some have visions of this evil, demonic dude, and they start kind of migrating towards these people. And that's what sets up this like good versus evil battle.
Right. The two camps of people split off, and they either go basically to the good side or to the evil side.
Right.
Down to Vegas.
Yeah. And we've got all these great characters, and they're kind of mixing it. I mean, I couldn't even begin. It's exactly the same.
Yep, they travel in tribes. People
with just zombies.
People seek community.
Yeah. Good versus evil.
Yep.
You've got your and it's a little bit more socio-political maybe, and a little bit more like,
well, they have more time too.
Yeah. It's a little more drawn out over more seasons, but the basis is the same. Theyese guys are all kind of, they're all, so he got despairing about his characters, about human nature, about how human nature is going to basically, no matter what happens, you're always going to go back to your basic human nature. Mm-hmm. And your basic human nature is a lot of self-serving, selfish interest type things. And so it almost made him stop.
That makes sense.
The whole book.
That would be like a little bit of an existential crisis. It would get you kind of a little lost.
Yeah. Up soon, a new 10-part Stand series, which I'm really excited about. Really, really, really. I hope they handle it well, because I believe the original's it can be done a lot better.
Yeah, let's see what they do with it.
Not that Mick Garris didn't do a wonderful job with what he had for the time. I think it was awesome, and it was so impactful. But I would love to see an update of it and a remake of it. And if you haven't read the book, read the book. It's amazing. And cover your mouths when you sneeze, folks.
Wash your hands when you're supposed to.
Wash your hands when you're supposed to.
Mysophobia.
Mysophobia. I don't think we have a topic for next time yet, but